Afternoon, Chair.
Good afternoon, sir.
Afternoon, Thompson.
Yes, good afternoon. We are going to start with our meeting now. Let me just check. Let me check whether are we all in and whether do we form a quorum to proceed with our important meeting. We have Honorable Mikalakis, Honorable Sileku, Honorable Bartlett, Honorable Shaikh, Honorable Nita, Honorable Zandamela. Yes, I think we are quite sufficient. We constitute a sufficient consensus and quorum to can start with the meeting.
Recording in progress.
Let me take this opportunity to welcome all of you, members of parliament. I know that we are just from a joint sitting of parliament, which has just ended in less than an hour from now, before that, and that we are ready now proceeding with our meeting. We're doing so to engage with the department because next week there is a debate that will cover both departments, that is human settlement as well as water and sanitation. And as you are aware, we are going to deal with issues of human settlement this afternoon. I saw the DG, Mr. Mbulelo Changani. I'm not sure whether is that the minister present in our meeting. Mr. Changani, can you? Sorry?
Chairperson?
Yes.
We have received an apology from the minister and the deputy minister.
They are both not here.
Yes, Chairperson.
Doesn't augur well. At least one of them should have been here to ensure that we facilitate this meeting appropriately, and at a political level, there is sufficient representation from either the minister or the deputy minister. But it's okay. This is a matter that I will take up with them to ensure that at all material times, at least one of them is present. But because the DG is here, I guess that is the one who's going to take charge of all the issues pertaining to the Department of Human Settlements. I can see that there are some senior officials from the department are here. I see that some of the entities of the department are also represented in the meeting. As I said, all of you, you are heartily welcomed. Any apologies? Most quickly, any apologies?
Chair, we have not received any formal apology, Chairperson.
Okay, fine, no problem. We're noting that as well. Without further ado, can I invite the DG, Mr. Mbulelo Changana, to take us through and explain how the presentation for human settlement is going to be done. Over to you, DG.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson and honorable members of the committee. Chairperson, I am accompanied by my colleagues. All my deputies are here. Dr. Sokopo, who is acting DDG Strategy and Planning, will kickstart the presentation on the strategic plans, including the MTSF 2019 and 2024, and DDG Ngongo, who is responsible for the APP in the organization, will also take us through our annual performance plans. We've structured our presentation in such a way that we will go through the presentation within the shortest time as possible, so that we can give members of the committee enough time to interact with the presentation. We'll kickstart with the purpose. We'll look at the MTSF. As you know, the strategic plans and the APP are informed by the MTSF targets of this term of government. We will then move to present the revised strategic plan, and we'll also take care of the APP. And after the APP, we'll also touch on the corporate plans. We'll then ask the CFO to take us through the 2021 MTEF which is your budget allocation. And then we'll close the presentation with the recommendations. Without wasting your time, Chairperson, let me ask Dr. Sokopo to lead us.
Good afternoon, DG. Good afternoon, Chairperson, members, and colleagues. As DG has indicated, I will start with the medium-term strategic framework 2019-2024. I would like to inform the members that we have submitted a request for revision of the MTSF due to the changing context that one of the changing context is the budgetary constraints. We have also used the opportunity to revise the MTSF to ensure that there's better alignment between the strategic plans and the annual performance plans. And then this, we are still awaiting the response from the DPME as it has to be approved by Cabinet. So what I will be presenting to you is on the overall, because the overall of what we want to achieve in terms of the MTSF has not changed other than the reduction in certain targets, not all of the targets. Next slide, please. Just to remind the members that the human settlements is within the priority spatial integration, human settlements and local government. And we are there to ensure that then, in particular, the spatial integration, environmental issues, also the alignment between all of that and public transport and basic services when we develop human settlements in all those different spaces are taken care of. The next slide. We are also ensuring that what is driving implementation is to ensure that we are clear in terms of the delivery plans and the alignment, as I indicated, between the MTSF, the strategic plans, and the APP. The most important aspect is that now we have started to ensure that we have geospatial info and the social housing, we have reduced them, and the community residential unit, which is also our affordable rental, we have reduced them. But what is most important aspect is the informal settlements upgrading, which we are planning to upgrade to phase 3 in this term of office. And that has not been revised, that we will still pursue that. And then the last part is the entitlement. So in a nutshell, this is what we are pursuing. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail because the next few slides are just unpacking the summary that I've just indicated to you. Next slide. This slide, I also am not going to go into detail to it because it's just an unpacking of the previous slide. Next slide. Next slide. Just skip all of that and go to number 17.
Chairperson.
Okay.
Can you please tell us? These people that are talking in Ngapaya, Ayasmosha, please. Can they be in order? We can't hear the presenter. They continue interacting with the presenter, please.
Yes, I understand. I see Honorable Sheikh and a certain Sokopo. Can you just please check that, because it does indicate that it's you one of you who might be causing this. Please, sorry for that disturbance. Can you proceed? Thanks, Honorable Leader.
Sokopo, Chairperson is the presenter that is the presenter.
Okay, thank you,
Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you. Chairperson, what I want to highlight to you is that we are focusing more into spatial transformation, and we have identified already 136 areas. And in the medium-term strategic framework, we initially indicated that we will identify 94. So we already have exceeded that. And in the this year, and starting last year, we have started with the development plans for those priority development areas so that we can pursue the spatial transformation. So that is the major part in terms of the shift for human settlements, is that spatial transformation, that we utilize housing to change the space. The next slide. The next slide, please. Let's move. We'll skip the rest because it's just unpacking all of that, and we now move to the revised strategic plan. Let's skip that also. Yes, we skip that. Yes, we now start with the strategic plan. The strategic plan, number 17, slide number 17, where we're talking about the revised 2020-2025 strategic plan. The strategic plan of the department, considering that there are three major outcomes that we are pursuing, one being the spatial transformation that I have indicated. The second one is adequate housing and improve quality of living environments. And the third one being the security of tenure. In terms of how we organize ourselves to deliver on all of this, next slide, please, slide number 18. We organize ourselves in terms of the department into 5 programs. First program being administration. Move please the slide to the programs. The second program being the integrated human settlements planning and development program. The third program being the informal settlements program, upgrading program, and the fifth program being affordable housing program, and also the fourth program being the rental and social housing. So we organize ourselves into all these 5 programs in order for us to ensure that we achieve what we want to achieve. So in terms of the program 1, I'm also going to be very quick when it comes to the program. So just move to the strategic plan. In terms of the what we are pursuing the mostly is to ensure that we have unqualified audit with no material findings, and that is the major part that we want AG to give us unqualified audit. That's what we are pursuing. The second, the next slide. The second program, which is integrated human settlements planning and development program, we are focusing, as I indicated, into ensuring that we have development plans. Development plans, if you go to the municipality, we are talking about principal plans. So these are development plans are developed in partnership with the municipalities, provinces, and the national department, as well as the other government departments. And as I indicated, we've exceeded the target of 94, but in terms of the development plans themselves, we have not yet reached that. We have planned that by the end of this MTSF period, we have at least a minimum of 136 development plans. Already, we have already started investing in these areas. We have a backlog of title deeds, and for various reasons that we have a backlog. But we are pursuing that and making sure that in the almost 1.2 million title deeds are registered by the end of this MTSF period. And for this period of the APP, there are specific ones that we want to register. But in terms of the 5-year program, we have 1,193 title deeds, 222. The next slide, please. The next slide is also dealing with the same integrated human settlements development, and we're dealing then with the program that we also making sure that we have a responsive policies that allow us to implement the programs. And one of the things that I want to highlight to you is the 40% set aside for designated groups, that we making sure that the entirety of our budget we have set aside for the designated group to support their businesses. Next slide. The next slide is also dealing with the integrated human settlements development, also still continuing to deal with all the other aspects that I have indicated to ensure that then we exercise oversight in the implementation of this program. And we are utilizing the 3 grants that the CFO will talk about, which I'm not going to unpack. This is just a part of the program planning milieu that indicates that then we will ensure that the national department actually do what it's supposed to do to ensure that there's oversight. The next slide. The next slide also, it's also dealing with the same aspect, which is also not the capacity building that ensures that then we, if there is no or inadequate capacity to implement the human settlements program, we deploy that capacity to municipalities, to provinces. And sometimes it's not us that diagnose that there's no capacity, but sometimes a request comes from provinces to say that please assist in 1, 2, 3, 4, then that's what we plan to do, that we have to ensure that then we ourselves, we have specialists that we have set aside that ensure that then that capacity is redeployed adequately in terms of the needs of the provinces and the municipalities. The next slide. The next slide deals with the program of informal settlements upgrading. As I indicated that we pursue the 1,500 informal settlements, and in the current MTSF period, and even our strategic plans indicates that then, and also the program, the phase 3 of informal settlements upgrading, it provides us with service sites, it provides us with socio-economic amenities, it provides us with infrastructure like your water, sewers, your sanitation, your lighting, street lighting. All of that are part of your informal settlements upgrading program phase 3. It also provides us communities with title deeds. That's what phase 3 is all about. But phase 3 is not providing a house, but it's providing everything else except for the top structure, which we are providing through other programs. So we are pursuing that, and we're also not leaving behind what we have said about setting aside and supporting designated groups in terms of the budget that we have. The next slide, please. Let's move and skip the informal settlements upgrading and go to the next program, which is rental. Also, I want to indicate that all of these programs, we emphasize more the oversight role of the national department and ensuring that then the finances that have been given to the provinces or the municipalities, we know every cent where it is being spent and how it is being spent. The rental and social housing program, we, as indicated, we have 20,000, we initially have 30,000, but we have requested DPME to reduce that to 18,000. Let's go to the program 4, please. The slide has to deal with the program 4, which is the rental program. So we are mainly implementing the rental program through the Social Housing Regulatory Authority. And again, they are implementing it in partnership with provinces and the municipalities. And we are also pursuing the same set aside for the designated groups with regard to the rental program. Next slide. The next slide, let's move now to the next program, which is the affordable housing program. The affordable housing program, it deals with the programs with individuals that are earning more than the 3,500, which I'm sure you have all heard Chairperson us talking about the gap market, which is all those individuals that are earning less than 22,000 but more than 3,500. That is a dedicated program focusing on this, and some of the government employees program falls within this affordable housing program, and we are pursuing that. So we are sharpening our instruments with regard to the affordable housing program, and we have a target now of 20,000, which we are hoping to exceed and to ensure that then the communities or the individuals that are in the gap market are assisted by government, just to indicate that they are assisted on a a hierarchy basis depending on how much they are earning from that scale of 3,500 to 22,000. Next slide. Chairperson, once again, all of these programs, one of the most important things that I would like to highlight is the oversight role of the National Department, as well as the capacity and partnership role that the National Department play in terms of the implementation of the program. So in as far as the 5-year plan, this is our 5-year plan, and my colleague then will then present the annual performance plan. Over to you, Seo.
Thank you, Honorable Chair, honorable members. I'm on slide number 34, where we're presenting our APP for the current financial year 2021-22. I will be making reference to the outcome indicator as our MTSF is an outcome-based program. In terms of our functional, efficient, and integrated government, we are planning for the unqualified audit opinion that has already been covered. And also we want to continue to comply in terms of the tabling in line with the prescripts. Our internal audit, we need to achieve all the steps in terms of our internal audit plan. On the next slide, Chair. Continuing with the outcome of efficient and integrated government, we also plan there to achieve the 100% execution of our corruption implementation plan. Again, risk becomes integrated, becomes important in our implementation. And so also is implementation on the human resources implementation plan. The next slide, slide number 36. Chair, we also plan there to implement 100% on our approved annual ICT plan. We have, Chair, elevated our ICT at a strategic level in order to support the business. And in terms of our communication strategy, the implementation thereof, we have again, Chairperson, here elevated the work of the department that it needs to be communicated efficiently and effectively, and this is a new target in this financial year. The next slide, Chair, in relation to the outcome of the spatial transformation through program integration in priority development areas. This has been covered in our strat plan. For this financial year, we have planned for the 47 integrated implementation programs for the priority development areas that they need to have been prepared. The next target, which is the new target, Chairperson, is in terms of the 20% of the human settlements grant invested in PDAs. Now, the priority development areas, these are the areas that we have targeted that will have all the forms of our deliverable, all our programs as consolidated in the so that everyone is accommodated. Our next target, Chair, is the new target in terms of the land acquisition. Again, we are linking the 30% of the land acquired within the priority development areas as part of the consolidation of our focus in terms of our priority areas. The next project, Chair, which becomes relevant is the state of readiness of our projects in all the 9 provinces. That we're planning to have the project readiness metrics implemented in all our provinces. That also include the metros. The next slide, Chair, slide number 38. We are planning here, Chairperson, in line with the distressed mining communities. We need to implement the program to revitalize them in 6 provinces, those that are in mining towns. This is essentially in order to avoid the situation where with our mining towns, they become ghost towns, and also to bring the economic activities in line in collaboration with the private sector. The next target, Chair, is the one that talks to the eradication of the title deeds backlog. Chair, this has been the area of concern with ourselves in terms of the performance. We still strive to make sure that we do eradicate the backlog. In relation to this target, Chairperson, you will have realized that the current MTSF targets makes no room for the backlog going forward. Hence the number, which was over 1 million that was planned for under the strat plan, the 5-year plan. Chair, in relation to integrated human settlements planning and development program, this is our program 2. We are responding to the outcome of security of tenure, where we are planning for the progress on the 5,644 title deeds. Chairperson, these have been broken down, pre-94, post-94, which is 20,758, and then on the post-24, which is 5,393, and then the progress report on the new title deeds, which is 6,733. The breakdown, Chairperson, as you can see, that it's a new target which seeks to assist us in terms of how far have we gone in addressing this backlog. The next slide. The next slide, Chair, we are responding to the adequate housing and improved quality living environment outcome, where we are planning for the 2022-23 National Human Settlements development plans that needs to be developed. And Chair, as you can see, there is 2022-23. This target also seeks to ensure that we are done with the development plans in this current financial year for the next current financial year, so that implementation could be facilitated better. In terms of our BNG houses, Chair, we are planning for the 52,405 houses delivered as a response to the improved quality environment. The next target, Chair, it also addresses the service sites that needs to be completed. We have elevated the figures, Chair, on the service sites completed in order to fast track and also to enable the communities to be able to build their own houses where they can do so instead of waiting for the complete house. Chair, if I can move to the last one for the 50 national priority projects implemented, Chairperson. On the next slide, which is slide number 41, Chair, in terms of the research, because research also is a priority at the national department, it's our core business. We are planning for 2 researches to be completed. One which will be in relation to agri-village and rainwater harvesting. Chair, you will see there that also we are now elevating our collaboration with our sister department, water and sanitation, as we need to collaborate going forward in terms of water and then also the agri-village. And also the exemption of the holding cost for land that is earmarked for housing development. Chair, the next target is in terms of the new policies that we want to draft. One which talks to the property transactional center, support centers. Chair, this target seeks to respond to a one-stop shop for our human settlements, where the citizens of this country will be able to visit these centers and be able to be answered different questions based on our programs, so that they don't have to go to multiple centers when they seek information. And again, Chair, these centers also, they need, they seek to assist the communities in relation to the 8-year clause that they should not be selling their BNG houses, so that there will be clarity that will be provided there. Chair, the next policy that we have elevated is informal settlements upgrading, a macro policy. We have prioritized the informal settlements upgrading the Chairperson. Therefore, also then this must be accompanied by the policy and the research. The next slide, Chairperson, still under program 2. Here we are planning for the 40% of budget to be allocated to entities owned by designated groups to be monitored. Chairperson, it is the program and the priority of this government that the projects or the budget should be also addressing the transformation backlog in this country, and these designated groups being women, people with disability, and youth. And also this department will be contributing 40% set aside budget for these designated groups as an economic response. Chair, our next target, we will continue to monitor and the projects that have been implemented using our Human Settlements Development Grant and the USDG. Chair, let me also indicate in terms of our entities also, they provide the support in terms of the delivery of our mandate. We will monitor their performance thereof. In the next slide, Chair, if I can just zoom into the second one, which talks to the capacity and the outcome there, which is adequate housing and improved quality of environment. We're planning for the 100% implementation Human Settlements Capacity Assembly. Chair, we will be implementing the capacity assembly per program. So this one is in relation to program 2. This will also seek to enhance the delivery and fast track the delivery within the human settlements sector. Chair, I'm on informal settlements upgrading on slide number 44, where we are planning for the 2 researches there. One, the topic will be the use of technology and communication and community participation in informal settlements. Chair, this is in relation to the very much important point that in order for us to succeed in the informal settlements, community participation becomes key. And the second topic will be a survey on the informal settlements themselves. Chair, in relation to the policies, 2 policies have been planned for, one which is the policy on social facilitation and also on the policy on empowerment of designated groups. I have spoken briefly on those before, Chair. On slide number 45, Chair, with your permission, I'm not going to repeat those because they are the same throughout the programs. On slide number 46, the capacity is still the same. Chairperson, under our strategy, we did speak about the 1,500 informal settlements upgraded to phase 3. So for the APP, we are planning for the 130 informal settlements to be upgraded to phase 3. Next slide, which is slide number 47. On slide number 47, Chair, we are now on program 4, which is rental and social housing program. Policy framework on the rental housing developed. Chair, that's what we are planning for. Let me also indicate, Chairperson, that the respective policies have been planned per program. The matter on the entities and the projects being implemented have been covered. They are cutting across, Chairperson. And let me just indicate also that there will be one evaluation study that should be completed in terms of this program, which is rental housing tribunal. We know that the role of the rental housing tribunals is actually central to this program, rental and social housing. On the next slide, Chair, the targets that we've got today, Chair, they cut across, they are the same. If I can move to slide number 49. Slide number 49 speaks to program 5, which is affordable housing program. The research there is specific for this program, which is the research on affordable housing, completed feasibility and mortgage default insurance. Chair, we know that this is the gap market, which is not easy for them to qualify for the bonds, and also they do not qualify for BNG houses. Chair, let me also indicate there that the evaluation study also will be implemented on the Finance League Individual Subsidy Program. This is the program, Chair, that also we have not been doing very well on it, but we have also got the support of our entity in order to enhance our performance on this program. The next slide, Chair. These are the reports that, the targets that are cutting across, such as the capacity, Chair. With your permission, if I do not repeat them. And then on the last slide, Chairperson, this is just the indication that our revised corporate plans were duly tabled in Parliament in accordance with the revised framework for strategic plan and annual performance plans. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. I'm sure it's now budget or corporate plan.
I have covered this slide, Chairperson.
I'm saying that it's now the budget, the rent and cents of your annual performance plan.
Honorable Chair, good afternoon, honorable members, DG colleagues. I'll take the members through the rands and cents as the chairperson has indicated. If I could ask thank you. Chair, I think as government, we all know that we are having those challenges that have an impact or just have had an impact, a drastic one, to our economic fiscus, and that has affected the budget cuts over the period of the MTEF. Now, we as a department, we're also affected by those cabinet cuts. And as you can see in the brackets from 2021 to 2024 financial year ending, you would notice that 486,921,000 has been taken away from our MTEF prioritized programs and the funding to that effect. And if you look at 2021 and 22, currently it's the impact of the previous MTEF that was approved. Now, you would recall that most of the plans that we had then were also based on this indicative allocation at that time. Only to get to these 2 financial years, other than the outer year, to have a cut of 130 and 171 million respectively. But that leaves us with the budget of 31.6 that is funding the plan, and the 98 billion that is funding the MTSF target as outlined. However, the focus is for this financial year with the amount of 31.6 billion, Chair. Now, Chair, we do know that this amount is informed by a number of grants, and I will talk to it as the slides move along. The next slide, please. The first cut, Chair, that I'm showing, it's in relation to the cost to employer, which is your compensation of employees, which has, over the 3 years, cut by 188 M. However, for this financial year, we're looking at 58 million that has affected our compensation of employees. But Chair, of importance and of interest, it's for members to can also see the allocation of the COE from the initial basement or baseline allocation. It was fluctuating upwards and downwards. However, from the cut itself, it is a bit stagnant at 403 million. That means that for any other positions that we have in the department, we need to complete filling them and be stable, excuse me, within the parameters of the 3-year cycle that we have. In the middle of the year, whereby you would have changes as people would leave the establishment, as one was coming in, we should be confined, or we are rather limited again to this 400. We cannot increase the COE, or as a matter of fact, reduce it, because it's only the cabinet that has a direct impact to can change this. So I'm simply saying that for everything that we have, we work within the limitations of 103 million. The next slide, Chair. The goods and services as well, and I think this is where the heat we hit to the bone of us making sure that we use this amount to the desired level of the support that we can give to that 98 billion over MTEF, if not 31 billion for this financial year. So that has been reduced again by 100 million with the limitation of 120 supporting together with the COE, that budget of 31 billion. The next slide. Chair, the HSDG, which is one of the major grants that we are administering as a department, and which funds the issues of basic services as well as your top structures, it was not affected by the cut that Cabinet has introduced. However, we have two cuts that have affected two provinces, simply because of the manner in which they had in the past behaved towards this grant. And the behavior has made them to use the conditional grant to fund cost to an employer. It means that they had reduced the grant that is supposed or is meant to provide housing opportunities and paid the employees to the department, whether it's in the form of contractors. However, the grant was not supposed to be used for that purpose because it's a specific purpose grant as well. So only those two provinces that were affected to the tune of 10 and 12 million respectively over the 2 years. And I think the next slide should show how the two provinces had been reduced in that. You will notice there that on the basis of the baseline of 13.413, 10 billion has been taken away, which affects Western Cape by 2, as well as KZN by 8. So they are being penalized to bypass or to compromise the conditions as given in the Division of Revenue Act. And if you can see over the other year, we do not have cuts because that has been stabilized, in that it means that they are owing National Treasury basically this amount. So that money is returned back to fiscus, back to the revenue. So Chair, on this grant itself, as indicated from the plan, this will fund all those, the APP, as well as the operational plan against the business plan that the provinces have provided to us. The next slide, Chair. We can move this one because it's a summary of the other one. It just shows that the total figure of 13.4 that will be running. Now, as indicated by the two former speakers, we have our Social Housing Regulatory Authority that is managing our social housing, wherein they also receive an operational budget from the department together with the investment from the fiscus. That has also been affected drastically, and I think it also cut on their COE, but the COE chair generally it has been cut across departments. We do know the issues of the wage bill that Treasury and government has been talking about. So it cuts across more or less all the entities, including all the departments. So we are not surprised as we look at it. So that this is how SHRA, unfortunately, was affected. And one of our entities as well, which would go to the next slide, which is our investment that SHRA is also receiving as part of the fiscal arrangement, that has been reduced by 937,000 to that effect, to have an amount of 22,725 to that. So that cut was not as minimal as one would have expected on this particularly institutional investment grant. The next slide. The National Housing Finance Corporation, it's the future of the Housing Human Settlement Development Bank. In this instance, if you look at the plan that has been aligned earlier on, it's talking about affordable housing. Now, for us to be able to fund this, we look at the category of those employees working within government and any other private sectors that do not earn the amount that is desirable by the bank to can give them an amount of loans. So this amount is assisting that category to can be able to use it as a capital deposit to reduce the installment of their bond. So this, please as a capital part is managed by that entity, whereas some of the provinces who may not have contracted with NHFC are also managing the capital part of the fees from their own fiscus. So this was also affected, and it's a big amount to be affected given the needs that are there in the market of this category within affordable housing gap market. The next slide. The same, this operational budget assists, if not supports the capital. As you know, when you have a capital budget, you do need an operational budget that supports it, but however, this was also affected. So these are the smallest grants. We can get to the next slide, where we are just indicating to the committee that with the budget that we had planned on in the previous, this led us to also reduce some of the housing opportunities or the numbers that are in the plan. The Housing Development Agency is receiving an operational budget from the department. This was affected for this financial year on the operations of the HDA other than the COE. But as you move along in the outer years, the COE has been cut. But this one entity that we need to work very hard, Chair, to advantage of committee members who also sit at the cabinet and with the MINCOM board, that we are moving towards this entity to be self-sustaining, to be self-independent from the funding that we have. Because this is an agency that we are also dependent upon for it to can provide us with the program and project managing of all the projects across the country, and it assists with provinces as well. So we do want to find an opportunity through any other fiscus that we can come up with, whether it's private sector assisting this, just for it to be having a cash injection and run on its own without relying on the grants that we have or the operational budget of the department. We can move to the next slide. Then we have an entity that is looking at the needs of the community, and as far as the schemes are concerned, which is called the Community Ombuds Services. They are receiving only the operational budget. Unfortunately, again, it was also affected by the cuts from your COE in the outer years in the 2023. For this financial year, it cuts on the goods and services of the budget. They are still within the boundaries of their balance sheet being better off because they are also receiving a revenue. However, they need to sort it out with National Treasury just so that they can be able to tap into those funding. And as soon as they are given an opportunity and tend them to be self-sustained, they may be in a position not to receive this grant anymore, or if not the subsidy from National Treasury. So there is that leeway of them finding themselves to be self-sustained and move away from relying on the fiscus itself. So now we have the CISOs having a 235 for this financial year, 721 over the MTEF period. Can move to the next slide. Then there's a program, Chair, that we fund in assistance of the candidates, if not the students that have an interest in the human settlements program and the qualification. We assist the community as well as those that are definitely in need of assistance. So we do have that program that provides them with scholarship. There are processes that need to be followed, and the department finds its way to have that proper assistance to those through this scholarship program. And it's for this financial year, we're sitting at 18 million that needs to be allocated as a final allocation. Can move to the next slide. Chair, among other grants that we are administering, we've started the process of segregating the grant of the informal settlements upgrading from the major grant of your urban settlement development grant, as well as the HSDG, which is a human settlement development grant. And we took portion of that money and dedicated it specifically to focus on the upgrading of informal settlements. I think in the past, we bypassed this area so much that it never received the attention it deserved, especially funding-wise, where you would get most of the money being invested in areas where you would not find a number of people However, the needs are at the informal settlements. And I think this is more emphasized when Dr. Sokobo was looking more on the issues of your MTSF targets across the country. And that is also in the plan. So we have agreed to the Treasury that this grant, this financial year, finds its tune for it to be specifically dedicated to focus its attention and the department attention to those areas that need priority attention from the national fiscus. So for this financial year, we have a budget of 3.8 and the outer year is 4.3. If you look at this amount, it does indicate, as Minister has indicated, that she is investing a total amount of 11 billion for informal settlement upgrading. So obviously, when the public is out there, there's large expectation. So we need to utilize this money within the parameters of those plans that we have, particularly for this program. We can move to the next one. In Chair, this is more of the grant that I will talk to it. The rest I will quickly, because they fine tune in a smaller areas where they fit in within those small programs. This is the Urban Settlement Development Grant earmarked for the metropolitans, municipalities that have been accredited by the department. Outside those municipalities, whereby they receive assistance from the province as well as from the metro for any other grant that they have, your MIC #1. However, this one is also administered by the National Department of Human Settlements. It is called the Urban, and you give it to Eastern Cape until Western Cape, because those are the most accredited metros. Now, if you look at Eastern Cape with 2, you'll have a metro called Buffalo City and Nelson Mandela. Then we have 1 in Bloemfontein, which is Mangaung. Then you have 3 in Gauteng, receiving a budget of 3.5 billion. Then you have eThekwini under KZN and in Cape Town under Western Cape. Now, if you look at this budget, it's also dedicated to your issues of the bulk, your issues of water, anything that is desirable for us to be able for the HSDG to find its tune for the top structures at the end of the day. So these kinds of, they complement each other. However, this grant is also a supplementary grant to the capital budget of the metro, wherein wherever, if they have to report to us, if the funding is a shortage, they are more than allowed to can use their capital grant and any other grant that may assist this grant to improve the growth or to improve the strength for it to give us more opportunities on the ground, and then for us to be able to run smoothly with the HSDG on the other hand. So we do have a budget for this category as well, Chairperson. I can move to the next grant, which is more or less the same as the informal settlement, but also administered by the metros as indicated. Chairperson, if you can look at the Gauteng itself. Gauteng, Ekurhuleni, Johannesburg, Tshwane. Then you will have Buffalo City and Nelson Mandela. You could take these 2 amounts, you go back to your HSDG, you go back to your USDG. So there's lots of investment in the provinces, separated in terms of program, and all of them are contributing to us receiving a good opportunity for a house. Now, if you take Gauteng at the 1.8 billion, you take the BGDG at the 3 billion, then you take Gauteng province, you combine these monies. If all of us can work together within that space of us looking at it from maximizing this can take us to a degree of a level whereby we could be satisfying the community out there. Can we move to the next slide? And I think I'm moving towards the end, Chair. Next slide. Chair, I think this is just an indication for everybody, which is more or less the summary of everything that I've spoken about. And this tells you to say how the breakdown is in terms of your transfers and subsidies, monies that are going to entities that are managing or assisting us. Down there, you will notice that I have 2 grants, which is the municipal emergency grant as well as the provincial emergency grant. These are emergency grants that they come in or kick in as soon as the disaster appears in an area. And there's many processes that needs to be followed prior to for the Director General together with National Treasury can release these funds. These funds are not transferable while they are in the budget. They are actually waiting for the disaster to happen. So we cannot use for any other purpose except when the disaster happens and they react to the emergency as we see it. I think, Chair, if I may check to the last slide and not repeating what I've said, I could just as well take members to the last slide, which I think we can move under this. I've spoken to this as well. And we appreciate the call from the select committee for us to present the annual plan of the department together with the funding that supports the plan. And we ask
to go back to slide 70.
Slide 70.
I'm helping you.
No problem.
One now.
Previous slide, please.
Yes. No,
70.
Speak to this
All
a
right.
bit of your bullet number 4, because this is a major problem. No, this is 69. Go to 70. And I'm sure members, no. You were there at number 70. There are 4 bullet points. Yes. Note there. Speak to this a bit, because number 4 is a major problem.
No problem, Chair. I think what we're trying to
all right.
No problem. What we are trying to indicate, Chair, here is that if we find ourselves, if not provinces as well, be it at a national department, provinces that are given money, if we do not perform in the year that we are reviewing, that money has a drastic impact in the following year, because we are planning multi-yearly. Now, if there's a situation whereby a project does not find its expression towards the supply chain early in the year for it to be expended against the funds that we are given for that financial year, and we happen not to get a rollover, the progress of the project is going to affect the new budget on the basis of the money that was not used in the previous financial year. If we also lose those funds to the fiscus, if the rollover is not approved. Similarly, when you see your COE, the COE doesn't increase. If you do not spend what you are allocated this year, the next year you'll have a different kind of a program or a different kind of money that does not run over to the new year. The fiscus works in a sense that the money for this financial year must be expended for this financial year, except when there's a rollover, then there is an improvement. But if there's no rollover approved, then it does have an impact on the next allocation or the allocation of the other year's, Chairperson. Thank you. That's what we're trying to mean here. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much for a very detailed presentation covering your medium-term strategic framework, covering your annual performance plan, as well as your budget allocation for the year 2021 and 22 financial year. Over to you, DG. Do you want to round up the presentation with a word or two?
Thank you very much, Chairperson. My team has covered all the areas that we wanted to present here. I forgot in the upfront to state that the Deputy Minister flew from Northern Cape to Gauteng and had the doctor's appointment. The arrangement was that she's going to join us late. We forgot to say that in the beginning of the meeting. Thank you, Chair.
All right.
We'll hand over to you.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you. Let me invite comments, engagements, questions, clarities from members of Parliament. Over to you, members. Are you all there? I will speak alone.
Fine.
To talk.
We are here, Chair, but we are fine.
Okay. Honorable Sheikh.
I'm there, Chair.
Yes. Honorable Sheikh, followed by Honorable Sileku, followed by Honorable Nita. If Honorable Bartlett would want to say something, should indicate that. Over to you in that order.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Chairperson, I do have a few questions, but okay, let me also thank the DG and the team from the department for that presentation. Chair, I just have a few issues. The one is when the presentation was made in terms of the MTSF, it was indicated there's a reduction in housing units. I think it's from 450,000 to 300,000, but also a reduction in social housing. Chair, maybe if the department could perhaps expand, you know, in terms of the reasons for these kind of reductions. But Chair, I always say this, you know, being the National Council of Provinces, it will be also important for us to know how this affects us as various provinces, so that when we do our oversight work, we also try and look into some of these issues. Chair, then also the issue raised around title deed backlogs. With this one as well, Chair, I think I would like to know also in Limpopo whether there are what are the backlogs, what are the reasons as well for the backlogs. And then furthermore, Chair, I think I want to just, the reduction in compensation of employees is one issue. However, it would seem that the allocation or this amount that is to be spent on consultants is increased. Can the department also perhaps explain why there is this increase in the use of consultants, whether in terms of the capacity within the institution itself, whether they have that capacity to can do their work, and whether this increased allocation to consultants is linked to the incapacity within the department. Yeah, Chair, let me stop there and let my colleagues raise the other ones. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Honorable Sileku.
Good afternoon, Chair, and to the presenters and to the HOD and to fellow members of the committee. Chair, apologies for my camera. It's a disadvantage to speak after Honorable Sheikh because she has eaten all of my words. But Chair.
That's why I speak first, Honorable Sileku.
It's okay. I think, Chair, you know, as much as there is a reduction in most of the programs that is from the department, one would say it's because of, as a country, we don't have funding, and there has been this COVID, but it would be naive for us, Chair, if we don't give the department an opportunity to maybe elaborate to us as a committee, you know, in terms of the cuts. Could it be possible that because of non-performance by the department that, you know, we have such, you know, a major cut in all of these programs? You know, or should I just rephrase and say the non-performance of the department or provinces or municipalities, did it actually have any way whatsoever in making, in contributing to the kind of cuts that we see from the Department of Human Settlements in the either MTEF for the next 3 financial years? Also, Chair, as much as one will be happy when a particular municipality or a province is not performing and that the money is transferred to another province, you know, it's okay. But Chair, what is of concern to me is that we see year in and year out that, the same provinces don't perform, the same municipalities don't perform. Instead of us dealing with those provinces or the people that are responsible in those provinces in terms of non-performance, what we tend to do, we actually punish, the poorest of the poor. We punish the people that are actually waiting for these opportunities by transferring the grants to provinces that are actually performing. So how is it possible that, or how are we going to make sure going forward that we look at how we deal with provinces when it comes to non-performance, instead of punishing, residents of those municipalities, those provinces, by taking away, their right to human settlement and to basic services by giving to provinces that are outperforming. And Chair, one thing that is of concern to me, Chair, is the issue of the preemptive right when it comes to our BNG houses. And Chair, and I really want the department, to share with the committee, how are they actually assisting municipalities when it comes to this preemptive right? Because now they are still, because the department is responsible to give, national policy direction, when it comes to human settlements. But what you'll find that municipalities are actually struggling when it comes, to the implementation and into the monitoring of this particular, preemptive right of saying, you cannot sell a house within a period of 8 years. But what we tend to find on the ground is that although there is that clause, in the policy, people are still, selling their houses, and as a result, they go and they stay again in the informal areas. They become backyard dwellers. They are also part of the people that actually, invading land, or so that projects cannot continue. So we really need to deal with this matter, as soon as possible, to make sure to give the necessary support and direction and guidance to municipalities when it comes to the implementation of this particular clause of this particular preemptive right. Chair, I won't dwell on the issue of consultants because Sheikh already dealt with it. Chair, I also need to understand what kind of support going forward is the department, going to give to provinces and municipalities when it comes to the implementation of the USIP. Because we always, year in and year out, we don't meet our targets. And some municipalities and some provinces, I think they don't have hope, because they are left on their own. And as a result, they don't perform because not sufficient support has been given to them. How is the department going forward going to make sure that when it comes to the implementation of UISP, that provinces and municipalities are given the proper and sufficient support? I think I will stop there, Chair. Thank you very much.
That's all. Yes, Honorable Rita.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Let me thank also the presenters for the quite straightforward presentation, Chair, with some areas of really concern, Chair. I'm happy that the department did touch on the issue of title deeds, because it's an area, a department that has been struggling to deal with. And yet in our constituencies, communities are complaining of not having their title deeds. I would appreciate at some point, Chair, if the department can give us a breakdown per province of how much, not now, but we need that information. It's more prevalent here in Buffalo City and also in Nelson Mandela. I want to be specific because I come from the province. The other one, Chair, is on the issue of their program 4, the rental stock. I see that they are still busy dealing with the development of a policy on that. It's a very critical matter, Chair, which I would like the department to commit itself in terms of timeframes. When are they planning to start that kind of a program?
And the other one, Chair, is a very long issue with the department. The issue of ratification of houses that were shortly built, I'll put it in that way. And this thing, Chair, it goes further than that. You also have a number of houses that were built pre-1994 and which have challenges as very serious. I would like to know from the department, especially in Buffalo City and Nelson Mandela, that is very bad issue of houses that are poorly built. I would like to know from the department, are they still prepared to deal with that challenge in those two municipalities, which they have also themselves identified as a challenge? Lastly, Chair, is on the issue of grading system to municipalities. Again, I'll talk about the province that I know, which is Eastern Cape, in Buffalo City in particular. They were taken through an exercise of being evaluated, if you call it evaluation, of them being graded in 2014. Up to date, they have not received the results, and it impacts negatively in terms of capacity of that metro to be able to deliver as expected. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Nita. Honorable Professor.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to ask, what is the controls in the Department of Housing? If sites that I went on, that you see it's the same plan that's being used, but the quality is in some cases so bad. The houses are collapsed. Also, that houses are built in between. There's nobody coming afterwards, nobody controlling, no checks and balances in place to check if all the houses were built, because you will see in every second corner you get a block that's lying there and they never built the house. So what can they do regarding that? And also where provinces are sending money back to the treasury, like in Northwest, I think, compliance and not spending that money on housing projects. It feels to me that there is no control over that and that the people are suffering because of that. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Any other contribution by members of parliament? If you are okay, I would also like to make some remarks and questions. Firstly, let us welcome the presentation. I join all other members who are saying that this presentation was very, very comprehensive, enlightening, and spelling in precision what the intentions of the department are in respect of this financial year. We gladly welcome that. As you know, I'm from the Northwest Province. Now, my concern with regard to what Honorable Professor has just raised is the fact that whilst the housing shortage is very acute in the Northwest, year in, year out, and in the last 2 years, it has gained momentum. That money was taken from the Northwest Province, redirected to other provinces because of non-delivery, non-performance by the department. And I'm asking myself why this department in the Northwest was not placed under Section 101B of the Constitution, in which an administrator would be there to ensure that he or she oversees the performance of the department. For me, this situation is very, very much unacceptable, especially when there is a company in the Northwest that is all over the news every time, about issues of housing and non-delivery and the amounts that are paid to this company. And I want to know, does the department aware of this? And if it is, why it has not made the necessary interventions, especially when this company was appointed for 3 years and its contract has run over well 5 to 6 years. And an explanation needs to be made in respect of this, why this has happened and why the department has not accordingly intervened to ensure that this is corrected, especially when monies year in, year out were taken from the Northwest province to the other provinces. For me, this is a cause for concern, and an explanation is quite needed so that we know what is it that is being done to address this particular issue. For me, if I may elaborate on this point, if the money is taken from one province to the other, whether it is Eastern Cape or Limpopo, or where to the Northern Cape or Gauteng, for example, to a performing province, that doesn't mean that the housing need in that particular province has disappeared. Actually, it is exacerbated because more and more people would not have the necessary housing opportunities because their money has been taken away. That doesn't mean that that particular problem has totally disappeared. And for me, that is a concern because I see this as lack of capacity or unwillingness to can deliver on housing, which needs a concomitant intervention by the department. And I would love the department to specifically respond on this particular matter because this is quite important. The second point that I want to raise is that a department has got a very important program to intervene in the distressed mining cities and towns because these cities had serious problems, had mining in their own areas, and once there is closure of mines, there is a lot of unemployment. People who work in the mines are now relying on the municipalities. Informal settlements are exacerbated, and therefore this program is an important intervention in my view. And where one area where this particular project is in place is in Maposana, in the Northwest province. A company was appointed, and a lot of complaints and issues have been brought to our attention about what is happening there. It would seem that there is a mismatch between delivery, the actual delivery, and the expenditure of the project, on the project. I would love the department to take cognizance of this, attend to this particular matter, satisfies itself that there is nothing that is untoward. If there is, appropriate measures be taken. Otherwise, in future, I'll remind you that I raised this particular matter on this platform, and the department has not done anything to look at it and to intervene accordingly, so that if there are anything, if there are things that are wrong, they must be addressed. And I would like the department to look at that. The third issue for me relates to housing finance. As I was listening to the presentation by the department, focus is on state-owned or state funding projects. And I don't hear how the department is trying to galvanize and to mobilize the private sector, the banks, so that they must also come to the party. It will be foolhardy on our part to think that with the only resources coming from the state is enough. We need to find ways, and I think there are appropriate measures that are in place to mobilize either private sector funding or even the banks to ensure that they invest or they finance housing, especially in the lower segment of our society. And I carefully listened to what the department was saying, and I find very little to say in terms of that particular area to augment on the programs that we have. This is what we are doing to mobilize private sector funding as well as the financial institutions to invest into housing. In the past, there is a law called Home Loan and Mortgage Disclosure Act, which was promulgated for this purpose to compel these financial institutions to disclose in what ways are they financing housing, especially to the lower segment of our society. And for me, it's quite important to assess to what an extent are they financing housing, because this is quite important in my view. And I would like the department to speak to that so that we know what is it that you're doing and how it is done and what impact does it make to make sure that it is not only the state that finance housing, but all other measures are also taken, and other institutions are also working very, very hard to ensure that they finance housing. It cannot be, in my view, sufficient that it's only the state, as I indicated. The other point that I want to raise, I think it was earlier on raised. The department is spending a lot of money to the metro municipalities, which is okay because that is where informal settlements in the main are. That is where overcrowding is. That is where the problems of urbanization are. But those particular problems relate to the proliferation of informal settlements that you see in our metropolitan municipalities. But the question for me is, with this urban settlement development grant, are the provincial or are the metropolitan municipalities spending these monies? And if in case that they don't, or they don't optimally utilize this funding that is before them, what are the necessary interventions that are there to ameliorate that situation? Just a week ago, there were major protests in Bloemfontein, in Mangaung, and part of that was service delivery as it relates to housing. People in the informal areas were protesting against the municipality as a result of that, and at the center of that was poor housing delivery by the municipality. And would like to know what is it that is happening in those municipalities. Are this money spent accordingly to the satisfaction of the communities? And if no, if there are insufficient funding allocated, what is it that we could do to address this particular issue? For me, that is an important point. The other point that I want to raise relates to our approach underpinned by the breaking new ground strategy of the government to ensure that indeed we do not only build houses, but we build human settlements for good human habitation. And this is underpinned by what we need to do at the end of the day to realize this. And for me personally, and I want you to discount and then clarify me on that. To me, the proliferation of these houses where there are no amenities, where there are no social amenities, where there are no hospitals, clinics, and what's not, and in my view, this amounts pushing the poor, especially the urban poor, to the peripheries. And I don't see this happening in the same way that we're building houses, because where these houses are built, still there are no clinics, there are no schools, there are no hospitals, there are no services, and there are no sports facilities and so on. And for me, this I see as lack of integration in our developmental approach. And this in itself defeats the whole notion of breaking new grounds, of ensuring that we build sustainable settlements. And what could be the problem? What are the fault lines? What is it that can be done to address this particular issue? For me, I think I need to raise it so that it's a matter that the department looks at it. And if we do not do integration and coordination much better with the sector departments that are responsible for all of this, and that this is not properly integrated in the IDPs of municipalities, then this is a problem that needs to be flagged, that needs to be attended to, because where our people live, where we build them houses, there ought to be concomitant services that are available for those particular communities. And I would like to see this, happening with the necessary tempo and pace that will ensure that at the end of the day, we succeed. Lastly, the municipal emergency housing grant. And I think in the last financial year, this was propelled more by the COVID-19 pandemic, in which allocations were made to the municipalities, and therefore they spent as a way of intervening and applying some emergency measures to help our own communities, which is okay, which is welcome. But for me, the question is, are there problems in the municipalities whereby these particular noble objectives are not, or they were not accomplished, and that the monies that were allocated for emergencies were they used for that purpose, or municipalities, as sometimes it's a normal thing that they spend monies that are not allocated for specific purposes, especially those that are conditional grants, they spend them for other purposes. Is the department satisfied, or the department has satisfied itself that all these monies that are allocated to municipalities for emergency purposes, were they indeed used for those particular purposes or not? And if not, what are the issues? Because we don't want tomorrow that SIU now begins to investigate this. This needs to be avoided, especially when we have to make a huge impact in respect of housing as such. Lastly, in terms of the entities, I'm aware that the minister embarked on a very, very important process of fast-tracking the filling of positions in the boards. And my concern is that it takes a long time to fill those particular positions. And the question is, why can't they be fast-tracked so that we have boards of entities that are stable? We have entities that are stable, that are functional, and that are able to accomplish their predetermined objectives. For me, this is very, very much important. And why can't this particular process be accelerated in the way that it's supposed to? But lastly, linked to this board, there's been a lot of problems, and this department appears in the media because we read a lot of infightings, dissolutions, and non-dissolutions, structural operations of these entities. And for me, it doesn't inspire confidence that we have this kind of problems in our entities, which are supposed to be stable and therefore do their work. And what is it that the department is doing to address this particular issue? Because it doesn't, as I'm saying, inspire confidence that the entities are appearing in the media because there are infightings, because there are lawsuits, there are litigations, and all of that. Things that I think, in my view, must be avoided in the spirit of corporate good governance. Yeah, those are the issues that we are raising as members of Parliament. Over to you, DG, for some responses, please.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. We've picked up quite a number of questions, and all of them are extremely relevant to the core business of this organization and to the sector as a whole. Chairperson, we're going to do what I would call the division of work amongst ourselves to respond to the questions. We're going to start with the CFO. The CFO will answer all the budget-related questions. The first question on the budget is from Honorable Sheikh, which talks about the budget, cuts and the reduction and what's causing that. And then she will take care of all the other issues that were raised by Honorable Seleko on the cuts as well, on the budget cuts, the issue of non-performance. So I'll ask the CFO to take care of all of those questions. And then the questions, there's a question that was raised by Honorable Seleko as well on the preemptive rights. I'll take care of that question, Chairperson. I'll respond to it later. And there was another question linked to informal settlements upgrading, whether we are providing support to provinces and municipalities. DDG Shabane will answer that question. And there was a question about the shifts, shifting the budget from one province to another province. It doesn't solve the problem. It keeps the money in the sector, but it is tantamount to collective punishment of the citizens of those provinces. We will then make it a point that we respond to that question as well, and we'll give practical examples of what we did in Eastern Cape in the last financial year, because Eastern Cape lost about 300 million rands to other provinces. In the past, Eastern Cape used to attract additional allocation from other provinces. So we'll give practical examples in answering that question. And I will take care of that question as well. Honorable Minister, your question about the breakdown of title deeds, Mr. Shabane will answer it. The question about rectification as well, it will be answered by Mr. Shabane on PCN and Nelson Mandela Bay Metro. I thought you meant accreditation when you said the grading of municipalities. And I think your question is about when are we finalizing the accreditation of municipalities? So we understand that question. We'll respond to it. Nontlantla Butelis will respond to that question, Honorable Minister. And then Honorable Fisser, your question about quality controls, quality checks, DG Shabane will talk to it. And then there was a question about Northwest in particular, Northwest losing an amount of about 100 million rands back to the National Department, not so much to the fiscals, but to other provinces. DDG Shabane will take care of that as well. On the Northwest, there were quite a number of specifics that Honorable Dodov raised about Northwest. We'll respond to them as well. And I've picked up, there was a question on leveraging funding. It's not just about government-funded programs. Do you leverage funding or augment budget from other private institutions? We'll get to that. I would want the CFO to respond to the question about Lambda, because it falls under her portfolio. DDG Sokopo will take care of the BNG integrated human settlements, not just housing delivery. She will answer that question about amenities, about settlements, about integration. And then Shabane will take care of the question about the emergency housing grant and whether municipalities are achieving what they were asked to do. Then there was a question about the stability of the boards. DDG Ngongo will respond to that question about the stability of the boards. Let's start with the CFO, Chairperson. If there is a question that maybe we have missed, we will ask the Chairperson or members of the committee to remind us if we miss a question. It will not be deliberate, but we will try and respond to all the questions. We'll kickstart with the CFO. CFO, over to you.
Thank you, DG. Thank you, Honorable Chair, members. Chair, on the issue of the consultants from Honorable Shin, we took a view as a department, given the fact that we were working towards filling all the vacancies, and that was also coupled by a change in the organizational structure or a review in the organizational structure, that while we are embarking on a drive for the recruitment, particularly on the different levels, we realized that there was a need for specialized people that we needed to augment within our project and program managing department, and wherein we agreed to say we will seek the professionals from outside, and we appointed them. And I think this is where we found a progress in terms of some of the projects that you would find them missing anywhere in the country or not them moving. And I think that also entirely assisted augmenting the capacity in the department. However, if one looks at the previous financial year or the 2020-21 financial year, you would notice that, Chair, there was a slight decrease from the bigger amount that we paid in the previous financial year on the issue of the consultants, because there was this first 4 months of the financial year not being utilized during the hard lockdowns. But I think the most important thing on that for members to notice it was that we have a number of interventions in the department that we pay them under the goods and services that are assisting us in different programs, and where we also find progress that is assisting within the department. So that is not overlooking the issue of recruitment in as far as the cost to employer is concerned, because that is also stringent in some way or parts, but that mostly the organizational structure is within the boundaries of the lower level of your level 12 to level 4. But now for the professional part of it, we had to take that route. However, that is going to reduce because somehow their contracts are finishing and so the like, but it does assist in the issue of interventions within the programs that we need. Chair, on the issue of the non-performance, particularly from the provinces, basically, while I did indicate that that doesn't even impact, you will recall that in the past, Treasury would look at it from your zero-based budgeting or your incremental-based budgeting. But I think for the particular part of the reduction in budgeting, I think it's more on the fiscus that is under pressure, let alone the fact that provinces are underspending and the penalty comes into the picture. In the past, it would have been seen like that because at least the economy was blooming at that time. It's not blossoming, but given the meltdown that we have, the stresses that the economy has found itself under, it leaves the country with no option but to reduce on the spending, particularly on more issues that are relating to consumables, so to speak. Your likes of your goods and services is highly affected. And the issue of the professionals, we need to limit to that. However, when it comes to the capital, this is where we, with the budget that we have, mindful to say that if we lose this budget, we will not find it anyway because the country does not have much power in terms of the budget or the funding itself. So it's more on the lessening of the economic growth that the country is facing. However, the issue of non-performance, it does contribute because ordinarily, if one looks at it from that angle, one would say to Treasury, we don't need this money. While we budget for it and we don't spend it, you give us more money, reduce it basically, but that's not the signal that we intend to have. Somehow it can be seen within that angle. But for the past 4 years, if members would recall, the economic growth was like your 0.1%. And I think when Treasury was announcing, it was even at 0.09. It doesn't even get to the 1. The 1.5, it's long time ago that we had that kind of economic growth. But I think from where we are sitting, our intention is to utilize the resources that we have as a department optimally to the level whereby we don't lose any sense to that effect. And I will couple this with the provinces that are not performing and those that are performing, in the sense that we have noticed the trend that when we have provinces or even metros that are not performing, you would find that money being lost back to fiscus, simply because at the time when Treasury makes the review of all the monies that were unspent, there are other pressing matters that arise. Your issues of your hospital, health issues, pandemic on itself took a toll, if you look at it from the previous year that we've just from. And that on its own put much pressure on the funding of government. Now, when they think of the monies that could not be spent in the previous financial vis-a-vis the challenges that the country is battling with, we can even bring issue of that vaccine that we have. There's much money that was needed on that. So they were to weigh those options to say which one is better for us to can give and which one is not weightful for it to can receive this funding. And then you find that the vaccine takes more weight when it comes to this. But on the basis of us having not spent the money within the framework that we were given money to spend on. So we lose money on so many bases. It may not be the issues of non-performance only. But I think what we are trying to do here to say, if a province does not spend, and you have a province that will give you the projects and the numbers, while we are mindful of the fact that it doesn't assist the community in that particular province, as if correctly so indicated, Chair, that the poorest of the poor are struggling. The poorest of the poor are not receiving the desired services that they expect to have or that they qualify to have, simply on the basis of the failures that we have within the system itself. But on the basis of us not wanting to lose money within the sector, we had developed in terms of the Division of Revenue Act process that we would retain the money from where we are sitting and use it for the purposes that would benefit the community in that particular area where they can easily absorb the money, in contrast to us taking money back to Treasury for any other pressing issues that are needed by the country, of course. But because we are, and I would use the word selfishly so loosely, just for us to understand, to say, we're trying so hard that for the better benefit of the country itself to receive the services that are desired. If one province cannot spend, we would take their money and give it to that province. But we would not leave that province with the problems that they have. And I think DG did indicate that he will make an example about Eastern Cape, where the intervention comes in. And I think he will add more onto that one. But the other day when we're having the CFO, we did indicate that it is not within our joy or interest to take money from one province to another, because we are quite aware that the needs for the others are underrated, while the needs of the others are actually overtaken by so many, and there's more funding that is actually invested in one partner. So we're trying to balance the equation by also the capacity that we want to bring in, that we are bringing in order to assist those provinces, including the metros, that do not find their expression in utilizing the budget at its entirety or for the benefit of the purpose that is intended for. So that process runs parallel across the country. Your COE will run with the recruitment drive, the consultant will assist for the special purpose, and then the budget gets finalized for that particular year. So the year will end, if not, a contract will be done in terms of your regulations of public service for a year only. So we look at all the issues, but we are mindful of the fact that funds should not be lost back to fiscus or be taken by another department, as a matter of fact. Chair, I think on the issue of the SAMDA, we have made some partnerships and agreement with the bank that the banks would provide us with information that is related to the home loans that they grant to the categories of the people that make applications to them. And I think we did indicate earlier, I think the COO did indicate that we have this category, if not Dr. Sokopa, to say that they do not qualify for the bigger part of the loans. The banks will chase them away and they don't have anywhere to go. They also do not qualify for the RDP houses that we have. So our programs are also assisting within that context. Now, these banks, the agreement that we have was for them to provide us with at least some of the reasons why they disapprove the loans, some of the reasons why they would give a loan with conditions. There's so many elements that you would find that even an individual, when he or she applies, there are reasons why loans do not get granted. However, the issue of the home loan becomes so sensitive because it does impact on the quality of life of the people who want to have a shelter or a roof under themselves. Now, that information the department does receive, we assess it, and as we assess it, although we do not find joy with some of the reasons, we would go back to the bank for us to can plead with them to say, this category is a very sensitive category, and our program somehow doesn't give these people money and they don't afford. So there we have those engagements with the bank. We do have reports that provide us with that kind of information. So I must just elaborate this with the issue of the partnerships that we have also made on the issue of the employer assisted housing, whereby we've also negotiated with the likes of Sasol, Nissan. We even went beyond the Pick and Pay and Checkers, where most of the category of the people that are falling within that FLISP, some of them are private sector related. They may not be in a position to can get the employer assisted program perhaps from the department, but we are insisting that if they were to come in and assist them and provide them with an employer assistance on come up with programs that could be related to that finance link individual subsidy program that we have. Because the department, or the government, while it's trying, it cannot reach all these levels. Some would tell you to say we can only give them 20,000 rand, and 20,000 rand against a house that is pretty standard of 450,000 does not make any difference. But as you find that our people where they are sitting, that 20,000 is a lot for them to can kickstart. So we do have those kinds of engagements and private partnership that we have. And I think within that category, we do find our way in with some of the employers. And I think the other day, Mercedes-Benz was also promoting that category to say they will assist their employers. So we do see a move within this, and ordinarily our people from government, from schools, nurses, you name them across the public sector, they are tuned to this. We also have a system whereby we track how many applications we do have through the NHFC program as well. And Chair, like DG has indicated, I think in the midst of everything that we may miss, we will get back to them. I think as we flip our pages, we'll see whether we did respond to everything. I'll hand over to DG. Thank you, DG.
Thank you very much, CFO. Can we ask Joseph Lishabane to respond to Honorable Meta, Honorable Dodovu, Honorable Fise, and Sheikh? Joe, if you can respond to those questions.
Thank you very much, DG. Good afternoon, Chairperson, and all the members in the meeting, colleagues. Chairperson, there are several questions in front of me. Let me confirm, my name remains Joseph Leshabani. Chairperson, let me confirm, I think the request for details on the breakdown of title deeds backlogs in provinces as well. Let me go a step further per municipality. That, Chair, we will make available to the committee, no problem with that. Safe to say that members will see when they receive that list per province. You will see that the biggest lagging activity is that townships are not formalized. So there's no severe general plan in some cases. Therefore, you cannot then transfer or register the property. In some cases, you would have the reality that the very township establishment process is not being concluded, whether due to the absence of engineering services certificates or otherwise municipal outstanding charges and accounts. But we will certainly make that breakdown available so that members, I know Member Sheikh was asking in respect of Limpopo, Menita was asking in respect of the Eastern Cape, the two metros in particular as well, but we'll make that breakdown available. Chairperson, I want to then turn to the question on what support is availed to metros, provinces to implement informal settlements upgrading. Chair, I can confirm in about 2009, we introduced a national upgrading support program, which was aiming at supporting practitioners in provinces and municipalities to better respond to informal settlements upgrading, but also understanding what the policy is understanding what the strategies are. But we went a step further, Chair. We also assisted provinces and municipalities by undertaking feasibility assessments of all those informal settlements to prepare the development plans, as in the upgrading plans. So we did all of that, Chairperson, because we believe that when we can help the provinces and municipalities to plan for upgrading, the actual upgrading becomes easier. I must admit, Chair, we have then observed that even with those upgrading plans that the National Department paid for and commissioned, then the municipalities would receive these upgrading plans and would not actually implement. We have then taken a step further. You members would be aware now, this year, we introduced a standalone informal settlements upgrading partnership grant, which goes to provinces and metros. And again, Chairperson, we assisted each metro, each province to put together a implementation plan that this grant is funding. But Chair, we realize we must still go deeper. We must step closer into that space and help provinces, metros to get contractors, whether on a turnkey basis, to be able to deliver the actual upgrading interventions that are required. So we've got the money, we've got the plans, the work must be done. So we are continuing with that, Chairperson. I can also confirm, Chairperson, in response to the question Member Nita raised, insofar as rectification is concerned. Chair, in particular the Eastern Cape, the Minister has made specific approvals for rather rectification interventions by approving a portion of the grant to be directed towards that, so that those houses can then be rectified. Of course, Chairperson, it does require that whether it's the province or the municipality, it must be in a position to be able to assess the damage, and that's where the NHBRC is available to assist, but also then appoint contractors to then rectify those houses. It's been going rather slowly, but it's not the absence of policy, it's not the absence of funding. It really comes down to executing that which is now in front of the province and the municipalities. But that program is in place, it's alive. We've made everything possible for the rectification to be undertaken. Perhaps what I must highlight is simply that then the province is then also balancing rectifying the houses vis-a-vis the new needs. And that will always be an issue in this instance, but safe to say that the plans are there to be implemented. Chairperson, Members Fessar was also asking about the quality-related questions. I must confirm, Chairperson, it is the policy that every house that is built must have been enrolled with the NHBRC. What the NHBRC does, Chairperson, it looks at the soil conditions, it looks at the design of the foundation that's required, it inspects the construction at every milestone, Chairperson. I can confirm that control mechanism is in place, it's firmly in place. Members would have noticed in some cases the NHBRC would institute court proceedings or even insist on work stoppage because the projects are not enrolled or the contractor is not complying with the quality requirements. Now, that is in place, and therefore we can track, Chairperson, which houses, and that's why we can easily pick up when there's non-compliance, which house is not enrolled and why is it cracking. And if it is enrolled and there are problems, the warranty cover is then activated to rectify that house. But Chair, preemptively, we require for every house to be enrolled with the NHBRC. If not, we intervene to make sure that those houses are in fact enrolled. That's why the quality management system then remains credible. Yes, Chairperson, in the question that Member Fesser asked also relates to the incomplete projects where you find, yes, projects are implemented. There's a portion that then is left incomplete. Chairperson, that is the cancer that we face, where you find that the contractor sometimes gets liquidated or runs into one or other problems, and they don't complete that which they were contracted for. Before you can then bring another contractor, you then have to do a due diligence, look at all the work that is left to be completed, and we have a program specifically intervening to assist provinces to complete those projects. However, the Northwest has a peculiar history, Chairperson, in that there was a time when municipalities were appointed as developers and funds transferred to them. So those funds, in some cases, the municipalities would not have completed the projects, and therefore you then have to do a reconciliation of all of the funds, look at whether there's any misdeed, and therefore the structural integrity of the incomplete projects before and as you bring in a new contractor. That's work that we are seized with, Chairperson, and therefore we are fairly comfortable that we can turn that corner. Chair, let me turn to the pressing question on emergency housing. Chair, you've correctly indicated that the grant is allocated, yes, in this case to municipalities. I can confirm, Chairperson, that insofar as expenditure of this grant for the purpose for which it's allocated, we've not picked up any problem in that regard. However, the problem that we've encountered is the slowness with which municipalities who have received these grants implement and complete those projects. We've also, Chair, picked up that the municipalities then struggle with procurement and other matters, but the funds remain intact, which is why, Chairperson, I'm sure in due course we'll come back to explain to yourselves how we are repurposing that grant once those approvals are in place. But we've realized that the slowness in responding to emergency incidents is in fact a betrayal of the grant's purpose. Therefore, we want speed, we want swift turnaround to ensure that the emergency need is met. Chair, let me amplify or let me add that all that we are trying to do also in mobilizing private parties, I know the CFO has indicated this part, but Chair, we also are having projects where we are partnering with private developers to co-invest in developments. Members would recall in the previous term, we were talking about catalytic projects, mega projects, all of which were partnering with private parties to deliver projects where we are blending the funding, public funding and private capital. We are continuing with that, Chair. In fact, it's become more necessary and essential that we scale up on the partnerships. We've now adopted a refined framework. We'll be calling for more partnerships in this regard, Chairperson, because indeed, relying on the fiscus alone will not resolve the housing problem, as the Chair has indicated. Further to that, Chairperson, let me come back to the distressed mining communities. Chair, we'll look at the Matosana matter, we'll verify. I take it that that relates to the N12, but we will come back. We'll look at that matter. The Chair is urging us to satisfy ourselves that there is no irregularity nor misdeed there. Chair will certainly look at that. I want to focus and zero in, Chairperson, on the Northwest scenario, or not scenario, but rather what is unfolding there. Yes, Chairperson, the decision was taken to rather intervene in the Northwest in terms of Section 101A. Chair, at the point in time, there was a fair degree of coherence and traction in getting the housing program and human settlements programs in the province to perform. But Chair, it may well be that we have to be upfront with the committee here that there were a number of decisions that in themselves undermined what would have become a turnaround in the department. Chair, through the intervention, and it was decided to separate human settlements from local government, which was noble because effectively human settlement is quite a massive portfolio. However, in that separation, Chair, the bulk of the staff in finance, program one as we call it, were left on the other side of COCTA, and human settlement was left without competency in that regard. And therefore, a number of areas went wrong. That is why the province could not reconcile expenditure at the time with delivery. But that being the case, Chairperson, we also, Chair, got to the point where we found that, and maybe let me put this in context, Chairperson, the appointment of the PMU, or rather insourcing the capacity to support program implementation, is not new. In fact, it's not even unique to the Northwest. In fact, it is provided for to source in supplementary capacity. In the case of the Northwest, with the PMU that was appointed, Chair, the PMU did what it was assigned to do. The real trouble is that it was not managed, and when I say managed, oversighted. So the contract management was weak. So even if you bring in additional capacity, you still have to oversight and direct that capacity. Now, the weaknesses in the department translated into the PMU then not being optimally utilized. I can confirm, Chair, the PMU is, in terms of the contract, is now ended, and therefore we are advising the department to rather focus on building its internal capacity so that it can do the work. And therefore, when you bring in external capacity, you are better able to manage it. Chair, let me also deal with, I must acknowledge, Chairperson, that when the underperformance of a province is registered, is noted, we go all out, Chair, to assist that province to turn a corner. Whether they're struggling with procurement or contracting, or even managing the contractors that are on site. Chair, I have to admit that when we don't see the results, it's unfortunate that you then have to accept that you either lose the funds to the fiscus, or you rather reallocate them within the sector to meet the housing demand in another part of the republic. It is not intentional to punish the citizens. However, we have to be certain that those funds are not lost to the housing program or human settlements program. That is why, Chairperson, we've spent a lot of time and efforts and even brought in additional capacity, professionals, attach them to provinces and municipalities to ensure that underperformance is not realized. But Chair, I must be I'm sure many of my colleagues would also note the same, that Chair, many often at times you find that there are matters that are resident within the governance or leadership of departments in provinces, even municipalities. Despite our intervention and support, they remain matters that decision makers must make in those respective institutions. But we continue, Chair, we are not despairing. We're just taking you into confidence that, yes, we've got an elaborate program of intervention and support. However, support has limitations, especially where accountability and responsibility meet. We can support to a point, but we also have to be realistic and accept that sometimes those who are responsible and accountable must then deliver on that accountability. Chair, I will pause there, and I hope I haven't missed any questions. Let me pause there, stop there, Chairperson. Thank you very much. If I've missed any question, I'm still here, Chairperson. Thank you.
Thank you, Joseph. Can I ask Sinisiwe to talk to the stability of the boards and the filling of the board's positions? DG Ngongo?
Thank you, DG. Thank you, Honorable Chair, honorable members. Let me emphasize that it is our priority to ensure that there is stability in our boards in order to make sure that the mandate of our human settlements entities is carried efficiently and effectively. Let me also indicate that we have had some challenges with some of the boards where the minister had no other alternatives but to dissolve those boards. In terms of the appointment of the boards, there are vacancies at the moment. For example, 3 institutions: the Social Housing Regulatory Authority, the HDA, and the new Property Practitioners and Regulatory Authority, the new institution that is taking over from the EAAB. The process from the department has been fairly completed, and these 3 boards are now en route to cabinet in order for cabinet to provide concurrence with the appointments of these boards. This is in terms of the DPSA handbook on the appointment of persons to boards, and we are expected to seek concurrence with cabinet. So that is where the process is. Let me also indicate that when vacancies do arise, we do also respond to those in order to improve the efficiencies in the boards. In line with that, Minister has also instructed that any executive and management positions within our institutions are prioritized and are filled. And we are monitoring that progress. There is good progress that has already been made. For example, under CISOs, we have got the new Chief Ombud, and the CFO also will now resume her duties shortly. And that is in relation to the stability, not only at boards, but also at executive and management. Lastly, Chair, it is our intention to ensure that leadership at board level and stability, it also cascades to the sector, where we expect the roles of the boards not only to be confined in their own institutions, but to the sector as a whole, so that there should be the collaboration that is required. For example, in institutions like the HDA, we do have the representatives from the Department of Public Works and Infrastructure, simply because of their role in our portfolio. As we know, the Public Works also has got the portfolio of properties. So also when that responsible person sits on in our boards, we need to be able to tap into that portfolio for the benefit of the human settlements and development. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, DG Ngongo. Can I ask Dr. Sokopo to respond to the question about integration and the preemptive rights clause?
Thank you very much, DG. DG, in the member, in fact, the reason that the members are seeing that there has not been integration, it's not a lack of policy. We do have the policies that allows for integration. We have observed this very same thing about the lack of amenities in some areas. So what we have done is to ensure that there is better integration. In fact, integration, we've looked at it now in terms of planning, in terms of ensuring that there's integration of budgets, in terms of integration of development. And we've also looked at integration in terms of infrastructure, which is what the member is talking about, ensuring that there's integration in terms of communities, various communities are integrated, as well as the integration in terms of making sure that there's compatible land uses. What we have done, I'm sure you've heard me talking about the 96 areas that we have declared. The 96 areas that we have declared, in fact, it's more than that. I indicated it's 136. That allows us then to achieve these various forms of integration that I have spoken about. The integration in terms of infrastructure, of communities, and land uses. And we are now forcing, because that's where the failure of policies has been, we're now ensuring that then the development plans that my colleague has spoken about, that they not emerging from the national department, but those development plans, they are emerging from the municipalities with the assistance of provinces. That's why then we had to ensure that the special development frameworks of municipalities, they are not just nice to have, but they are translated into IDPs and therefore implementation plans. So that is what we are working with. And we are also ensuring that then the national departments, the various national departments, whether it's transport, whether it's a Department of Basic Education, whether it's Department of Health, they all understand that these areas, the priority development areas, are actually organizing tools for government to ensure that there is integration. And therefore, the investment for government is directed towards those areas, so that if there is a need for school, we start early enough and not only realize once there's development that, there is a need for school. It comes at a planning stage so that we are able to coordinate all that process of planning, budgeting, as well as ensuring that the infrastructure is sequenced properly and what comes first do come first and not come last. Also, the very same areas we are looking at it, because the member talk about how then, why is it that we are unable to attract private investment? That is also the way of us as government attracting private investment, because we know that the private sector wants much more surety about where developments are going to be. So in order for us to then deal with that, then we declare these areas, and it's not like these areas will be developed in the next 5 years. It's a long-term approach to development that is fairly new to human settlements, that we are trying to ensure that then it is successful. It's going to change the space of South African human settlements, and also address the long challenges that we have with regard to apartheid special form. And also it's about achieving the sustainability that we have been pursuing since 1994 of our settlements. Going now to the preemptive clause, as you correctly say, there's an 8-year preemptive clause. And we also have realized the very same issues that there is no system that we're putting in place that are at municipal level, where somebody who walks in and say, look, I want to sell my house, there is somebody to assist. So we are establishing these the support centers, and those supported centers, they will provide a range of services, and the location of these might be at municipal level or any other area that that is accessible to communities. They will deal with exactly what you are saying, so buying and selling of properties, because we know that sometimes communities want to sell and they don't sell the right way, that a house cannot just be sold, that there's an agreement between the two of us and we exchange money. So they will assist in doing that, and also dealing with all those areas with regard to the preemptive clause, that if you want to sell before the 8-year period, then that has to revert back to government. That's what the policy says, and therefore will assist you to take your name off the list in the housing system database, and therefore you can then apply wherever that you're going. And also, if you have reached the 8 years, how then can we assist you? It also, those centers will also assist, because as indicated earlier on, I spoke about the reduction in the housing units. It's based on the budget. I'm sure this, the CFO has indicated it's based on the budget, but there are trade-offs here where we will then assist those people that will be provided with service site on how then they should develop through the people's housing process, which the minister is renaming it as Zenzeleni, which means you can do things for yourself. So that is our PHP program that we want to enhance and ensure that then there is a much more local-based systems that are supporting the beneficiaries that are out there. Thank you very much, DG.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to ask Nonhlanhla Buthelezi to pick up 2 questions on the policy. One on our, she may want to add on Hlamda, and the other question on our partnership with BASA using FLISP as well as a leveraging grant. Nonhlanhla, do you want to come in there?
Thank you, DG. Good afternoon, Chairperson and members. I think the questions, like alluded earlier on, it's around the policies that we develop. The first one was around the rental policy. When you looked at the plan, it looked like we are not doing anything. The fact that we have that as a target, it does not mean that we are not implementing in the current. We still have programs which we regard as rental interventions, like your social housing program, which I think the CFO did reflect in terms of numbers, and also the community residential development program, which is about the redevelopment of hostels. Those programs, 2 of them are still there. There is another 3rd one, which we are saying we are refining it. But over and above that, as the market changes, I think, Chairperson, you'll realize that there are so many emerging renters who are providing rental. So part of us saying we are revising the policies to be able to be responsive in terms of the current environment and make sure that we have instruments that are functional for us to provide housing in a form of rental. One of the areas, it will be the cost in relation to the units that we are building, which I think on a regular basis we'll review in terms of the cost, how much it costs. We go through the exercise of checking in the Bureau of Economic Research, advise the minister and the department in terms of the changes. So when you see the items around review of policies, it's because the policy environment is so broad. It's like a piece of the jigsaw puzzle, which when you move some of the elements, the other ones will move. The other question, Chair and members, which relates to the very same issue of policy, it will be where the member spoke about the plans that we have, which they look like they are the same. It's also part of that policy area to say, maybe if you go back to the early days of our subsidy, housing subsidy scheme, We had standard houses that were measuring 16 square meters, but that has changed significantly over the years. We are now providing a 40 square meter house for the normal person. And for a person who has disabilities, we provide a house that measures 45 square meters. It has finishings that allows a person who's moving through a wheelchair to be able to move within the house. It has bathrooms that are a little bit different because of the levers that needs to be more at the bottom than what you'll get at the normal doors where everything is at the top. We also provide the 50 square meter, which is what we provide for the military veterans house, though the other component of the 40, 10 additional square meter, it's funded by the Department of Military Veterans as a top-up. Over and above those plans, Chairperson, I must indicate that we also have higher density designs. You will see them, but we call them maybe RDP walk-ups. Maybe they may look like flats when you go around and you may think it's not government funded. We have since approved plans which are allowing all provinces to implement such plans. But the other critical issue, Chairperson, in relation to the issue of the designs which may look the same or the plans looking the same, it's around the standards that we have. Standards, as you know, they change from time to time. We have what we call the SENS 10400 XA. It was introduced, I think, around 2011, 2012, and it was brought on board for us to deal with energy efficiency requirements. There were issues that were raised in relation to that around the health bill ending up huge because our houses are too cold. So as a department, we had to amend our plans, make it to have more finishings like your ceilings and also electricity, including the plugs that you'll have, which are installed in each and every room. I must say, Chair, it may look like they are the same outside, but in the inside, they are a little bit different. So in terms of those standards, they change every 5 to 7 years. As we speak, there is another version which is out where we are trying to align as the department and check whether whatever that is being recommended, will it be possible to fund it within the limited resources. I think the colleagues have spoken about the change in terms of approach, and within what we are saying, we are still going to provide, especially for persons with disabilities. We have to ensure that we provide a house that goes with those standards. The other question, Chairperson, I think as it relates to the FLISP or the issue of SAMTA, CFO has mentioned that we do the analysis in terms of the transactions that are happening there. As a department, we fund up to a house or we fund persons that earns up to 22,000 rand. And it starts from 3,501. We've had several engagements with the bank where we are bringing to their attention the challenge that we are having, given that we have shifted the income bands. Initially, they were around 15,000, but we pushed the income band to 22,000 rand. Our conversation was around them being able to fund our beneficiaries or South Africans will approach the bank and would provide mortgages. But from those conversations, it became clear that we have a challenge as a country because majority of our citizens, they are heavily indebted. And to take a person out of being overcommitted, it becomes a very long journey in terms of asking that person to close some of the accounts, that's creating other challenges. But we've engaged with the banks, they've told us those reasons, and we have these agreements that we've signed, and we are revisiting them. I think we are going to have another session where we engage with them in a form of a lekgotla, pushing them to offer other products apart from the mortgage, because if you look at the fact that you have a mortgage, and a majority of us probably would have bought that way, and there will be those non-traditional ways of building and dealing with what's acquiring a house. And as a department, we are saying, we've sort of made a policy that says let's accommodate those that will be purchasing through non-mortgage options. We are saying let there be pension backed loans, let there be acquisition in a form of installment sale. But over and above that, we are saying let the banks be able to offer these other products, which may not necessarily be following the conventional mortgage approach. But overall, I think it's interventions that are there and we keep on reforming them. We are even coming up with an intervention where we are saying as a department, we need to come up with a rehabilitation program for those beneficiaries who are recipients of what we call a government employee housing scheme. And most of them would have received the subsidy scheme from government, but they would not be able to acquire a house because of the very same problem I've mentioned in terms of heavily being indebted. The last question, maybe DG and colleagues, Chairperson, without going into too much detail around the income bands and all that, it's around the issue of what accreditation. I think members spoke about capacity building within the Eastern Cape. We do have 2 metros that had been earmarked. I think at some point we had said those metros will be given what we call a level 2 or a phase 2 accreditation, which means you are transferring the housing function on a full-time basis. That municipality will be responsible for administering funding, will be hiring its own practitioners and contractors that will be developing. But the issue there was around whether municipalities are really ready in terms of assuming that function if we were to transfer it on a permanent basis. The program, Chairperson, I must also explain, as I say, it has a phase 2, but it also has a phase 1. A phase 1 is where we are saying we are devolving, but we are not giving a metro the full function, like when we assign and say it becomes a function that is permanent to you as a municipality. In terms of phase 1, then you'll go through those processes, be able to get money from a provincial department, you still account to a provincial department. So if you look at the issues that pertains to what transpired in the Eastern Cape, it's around the readiness to be able to move to that level, to that phase, which we call a phase 2 accreditation, which we call it a permanent transfer of function, which is also known as assignment. So when colleagues talk about it, it looks like the program has been halted. It has not been halted. It is still there. It is applied in majority of the provinces, including even the Eastern Cape, where maybe member is coming from. The issue is around us being able to have that certainty that the municipality is able to carry its own functions and will be able to also carry this additional function of housing, which comes with additional responsibility. And unfortunately, if a municipality is not doing very well with its own affairs, it keeps on getting negative audit findings. It becomes a little bit difficult because we have specific tools that we utilize in terms of assessing who really is ready, and we'll check how you manage beneficiaries, we'll check your financials, we'll check your planning, and it's a whole range of other areas. But in the event we find you not suitable to move to any level, we offer you some capacity support, which will enable you at least to grow up to a point where we are able to say you can be given a level of accreditation, which will be maybe a part that says at this stage you are not ready. If you are ready, he'll give you a green light and you get another certificate that shows that you are ready. But we still continue to capacitate you, because in terms of the Housing Act, we have a responsibility as a national government to capacitate provinces, to also capacitate municipalities in the event they are failures. I'm gonna leave it at that, Chair, and DG, I hope I did clarify on the 3 issues. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. We think we've answered all the questions except one question, which talks to the performance of the metros. We can share with you that information, the breakdown on the performance of the metros over the last 3 years. We've got that data. We can forward it to you. There was a specific question about performance and the protest in Mangaung. We think, Chairperson, that Mangaung is the only metro that remains unstable at this stage. Other metros, Joburg did well in the previous financial year. They lost the money in this current financial year. So Ekurhuleni didn't do well in the previous financial year. They got more allocation in the current financial year. So I think, Chairperson, the only consistent non-performer at this stage is Mangaung. And I think we need executive intervention there by COGTA, by National Treasury, and by ourselves so that we can deal with some of the glaring challenges in that particular municipality. The morale amongst the officials that we interact with is very low. So there is a problem in Mangaung. Thank you very much. The constant performer when it comes to spending the budget is Buffalo City. Buffalo City for the last 4 years has been doing very well, attracting funding from other municipalities. Nelson Mandela Bay had a problem last year. National Treasury decided to activate Section 216, if my memory serves me well, but we intervened and we managed to disperse the money. So, Chair, let me apologize for being too elaborate in answering all of your questions. My colleagues get very passionate about answering some of these questions, and they are very passionate about their work. Thanks a lot, and thank you for allowing us to elaborate and explain.
I think that elaboration is very, very helpful for members, and I can see that your team is well coordinated and well averse about the issues at hand and how they want to resolve the human settlement issues. Let me check with other members. Is there anyone who feels very strong, like me,
Yes,
on one?
Chair. Yes, on
one issue each. If you feel very strong that that issue must be attended to, please. Yes, Honorable Leader.
Thank you very much, Chair. Chair, let me thank Chair, the response from the department. It's quite elaborate, I agree, and it's helping us. And Chair, I want to follow up on the issue of accreditation. I very much appreciate the fact that he has outlined how the process, the process that they are following. But I'm happy that also the DG is saying Buffalo City is spending, even this year, they did get more. But the problem, Chair, there, what I want to raise it sharply, they do not communicate with municipality how far are they with the issue of accreditation. Well, they are even not bad in terms of their audit outcomes. Lastly, Chair, is on the issue of the pre-1994 houses. What is the plan of the department? Reason why I'm asking that, Chair, those houses, they are owned by indigent people. So we don't know what to say when they say their houses are collapsing. Is there a plan? I do not say it's their responsibility. I just want to check. Thanks, Chair.
On that, there was a scheme called the Extended or the Housing Benefit Scheme that was taking care of that, but I'm sure the department will respond to that. I don't see any other hand that seeks an urgent intervention. If there is none, I have only one. It will be a remiss of massive proportions if I can raise this. In the Northwest, there is a project that is mooted in the Bakuvung precinct. I would like the DG or DDG to talk a bit about it, because in the context of the problems facing the province, especially in the Bojanala region, that could be a very, very solid intervention to help that municipality and the whole project itself to ensure that it is well integrated within the special development zone of Bojanala, where I'm deployed. You can, if you can, just share with us a bit about that, and the fact that it needs to be unfolded, and the department can play a pivotal role in terms of ensuring that that project is kickstarted. Just quick responses on the two matters, and then we wrap up the meeting, please. DG.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I'm going to start with the last question and then ask my two colleagues, Joseph and Nonhlanhla, to respond to the other two. One about Buffalo City accreditation, and then the other one about rectification. The one on Bakubung, that project is at a project packaging stage. One of the things that we want to do is to make sure that all of these projects where you have partnerships, because the mining community in that particular project area is very much interested to participate. So what we wanted to do, and I'm sure Joseph will add to this, is to issue an RFP to all the developers out there who want to partner with government. And by the way, this includes Mooikloof project, which was launched by the president a while ago. Because if we are going to spend government money on developments that include private developers, we have to make sure that we comply with Section 217 of the Constitution. So we will be giving all these big developers, including Bakubung project, to respond to the RFP, which will make it possible for us to contract with them properly so that we don't come back to the select committee and answer about irregularities. So that process is underway and is being managed currently by DDG Lishabane. I'm going to ask DDG Lishabane to start and then ask Acting DDG Buthelezi to also respond to the question about accreditation. Joe?
Thank you, DG Chairperson. Indeed, I can confirm we are working with the developers in that regard, Bakubung and quite a few others in those mining communities. But we will be formalizing the call for proposals shortly so that we can then give everybody a chance to partner openly, fairly, transparently as well. Chair, the question of rectification, especially of the old stock, I take it that, Honorable Ngita, we probably have to then go back and look at how the municipality and the province are prioritizing which household, or rather which house to rectify when, because it may well be that older houses are not being attended to on a priority basis. But we'll have to get into that space, Chair, and be certain that indeed the ordering of priorities is not only fair, but it is also rational and transparent. And yeah, so I would want to not so much leave it there, but rather seek opportunity that we review the prioritization that the municipality or the province in this case approaches the rectification needs. I also confirm, Chairperson, that indeed the rectification program was also aimed or allowing for what we call the old stock that was to be transferred to beneficiaries to be rectified before it gets transferred. But in the event that that is the case, we'll then have to act quickly on those details to be able to then make sure that that household is not unduly overlooked. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chairperson. I think the question from the member is very clear. I think as a department, we'll have to go back and check in the BCM as to what actually is happening there. There were tensions at some point, which we think we thought we had addressed. And we should be receiving an application that requests us to intervene in terms of accreditation, because the application has to be done together with the province, because they are the ones who are accrediting. But safe to say we will follow up that. Thank you.
Perhaps, Chairperson, on that issue on PCM, we are aware about some of the dynamics previously. Because the certificate was not issued, even though all the work was done to BCM to be given level 2 accreditation. And the reason why they're getting USDG grant is because it is deemed that they are accredited up to level 2. But we know that the previous MSc never issued the certificate. But that's the matter that we need to deal with first at an executive level and maybe at an administration level as well. So we are very much aware about those dynamics, and we'll follow up with the HOD in the province and the city manager of PCM. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you very much. With that, it brings us to the end of the meeting. Just some few issues. DG, firstly, pass our regards to both the minister and the deputy minister. I think once more, I know that they are quite aware of all the issues at play, but once more they've missed in terms of their interaction with us as members of parliament with regard to your APP and your budget. Going forward, what we are going to do as a committee, we are going to attune and align our program for this year in relation to the 5 programs that you raised, in relation to the key performance areas that you have highlighted, in relation to your overall annual performance plan, so that we hold you accountable, we oversee your activities, and indeed we are satisfied that whatever that you do makes an impact in terms of housing development in our country. We are going to do that, and we are going to ensure that we inform you timely in terms of the dates that we would have set to ensure that we interact with you quite expeditiously. What we are also happy about is the fact that you have made a commitment to go back and attend to all the issues that were raised by the members, where some sort of investigation has got to happen. Do that investigation so that you satisfy yourselves that there is nothing that is wrong, that you are in touch in terms of attending to the issues that are before you. Other than that, we are quite satisfied, and I hope that I speak on behalf of the committee in its entirety, that you are marshalling your forces quite well. I listened how you coordinated the responses to the questions, and it really inspires confidence. We are quite excited about that. Other than that, we wish you good luck, even in terms of your financial performance. It looks good. The audit outcome of the department, it looks good. Look at the entities, support them, ensure that they are on the same path, all of them irrespective with the department. And with that, I think it can go a long way in terms of addressing the challenges that are facing the housing sector. Housing is a daunting challenge. It's a huge challenge, and we cannot tire, we cannot relax up until we ensure that a lot of people have got good human habitation, they've got roofs on top of their heads, and they are all happy with regard to where they live. And that is what we are going to do to ensure that we play our oversight optimally to ensure that we do that. And I think during this time, we will also plan that we do some oversight visits as a committee to some of your projects that we mentioned here, so that we check on our own that they are really working, that they are achieving intended results, and so on and so forth. With that, the meeting is adjourned, and thank you very much for attending this meeting. Have a wonderful weekend. The committee will meet sometime next week, I think it's on Tuesday, to consider the report with a view of adopting it, because I think on the 4th, it will be a debate on both this budget on human settlement combined with the budget on appropriation on water and sanitation. Thank you very much. The meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank
Thank you very much,
Chair.
Chairperson. Thank you.
Leave there.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Recording stopped.
Yeah.